everyone. Welcome back to FTCE Seminar. So today we have an incredible guest who's not just a student, but also a future leader in education. I'm a huge fan, and I know you will be too. Please give a warm welcome to Tommy Seeker. Now, Tommy is a senior at the University of West Florida, and he's not just checking boxes, he's collecting certifications like they're trophies. He's earning a degree in exceptional student education and elementary education with certifications in reading and ESOL, which is like English speakers of other languages. But see, what's truly inspiring is his journey. See, he's done it all: mentoring, tutoring, teaching, supervising. He even served as an extended learning coordinator. And get this, all while being an online student from across the great state of Florida. Tommy is also an officer with the UWF esports team, and ambassador for the Student Organization Council, and an officer for the Kappa Delta Pi Educational Honor Society. That's where I met him. Seriously, Tommy is a force of nature. So, welcome to the show, Tommy. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me, Mercedes. And like she said, I met her through Kappa Delta Pi. It's been an awesome experience, one that I would highly encourage everybody to participate in as well. And I'm looking forward to our talk today.
Thank you so much. Let's jump right in why we're here. Now, the White House recently announced, in April 2025, an executive order focused on bringing AI into K through 12 education. The big deal is to get young Americans ready for an AI-powered future. Okay, cool. But for us, and for anyone preparing for high-stakes exams, this is a game changer. The order specifically mentions using federal funds to support AI-enhanced high-impact tutoring. Now, this is about making personalized tutoring, and that really moves the needle on student outcomes. It makes it more accessible and affordable because it's free. So, Tommy, you're right on the cusp of graduation. What certification exam did you just take, right?
That one has an interesting story. So the first one that I took was the FTCE Professional. And I like to look at this, since we're talking about AI, similar to the technology world. So if you're in technology, you do something called the CompTIA test. And this CompTIA test is called the CompTIA A+. And the reason I bring this up is because just like in the technology field, the education field has a multi-part certificate. You need not just a CompTIA A+, but you need an N+ or an M+ to make that valid. Where in the education world, you need the FTCE Professional, and then you need a coupling certificate to go with it, rather be elementary, ESE, or one of the other multiple ones. So I started with the FTCE Professional Certificate. That one I did not pass on the first take. However, there was a funny story behind that. And the reason why I say it's sort of funny is because the one testing center that I take it at is very overpopulated. It services a few cities in the area. So I went in, I did the usual prep. You go in, you show your ID, you did a palm scan, you do all the necessary steps. And they showed me the computer saying, "Hey, is this your name?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's my name." So she clicked it and said, "Good luck." So when I went to the next page, all the questions did not seem right. They weren't geared to the FTCE Professional thing. And this will come back later, and you'll see why I'm bringing this up now. But you would think that would be stress-inducing and all that kind of stuff. But because of AI and helping me get confident with these test-taking preparations, I only missed a test I actually didn't study for by only a couple questions. However, on the second attempt, and I did appeal and everything, and just like with everything with bureaucracy, you sometimes win them, sometimes you lose the appeal. Didn't get the appeal. However, on the second attempt, I went in and I passed it without any issues whatsoever. The next test I'm looking at taking is the FTCE Elementary. And I've been doing all these preparations that we'll be talking about later to help me get prepared for that as well.
This is great news that you passed, and really funny that you almost passed a test that you didn't prepare for, but it's also because you had these great test-taking strategies. I know when I was reading some of the strategies that you had shared with me, you had actually used AI to come up with a 2-week study plan.
Yeah. And that one branches out even further. I've gone back to even a month out and sometimes even further, but most of those were more or less playing with the concept of could this be a viable solution? And there was a lot of refinement that goes on as well. So it's not just as simple, you could just open a browser and be like, hey, get me ready to pass the FTCE professional now. And then it'll just do everything for you. You have to do some of the work yourself to get prepared. It's not a lot of work, but you do have to put in the work to get the results that you want.
This is well stated, and something that I did want to talk about is your prompt technique and refinement. Something that I'm working on also. This is awesome. This is all good stuff. I have a question. So, how can our listeners, a lot of whom are getting ready for their own certification tests, use AI to prepare for an exam? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So there's multiple different AI platforms, and I'm not going to say which one's the best. Best is very subjective to whatever you feel comfortable with. It could be for whatever reasons. We're not going to get into them. It'll be a 5-hour podcast if we do that. But it comes down to your own personal preference, right? If you want to use GPT, Gemini, Gronk, whatever, find the one that works best for you. Find one that you're able to access reliably. Because just like with anything, you need to be able to routinely use this. If you're going to learn to play an instrument, you're going to have to be able to pick up that musical instrument and practice every so often. You can't just pull up a trumpet and all of a sudden you're playing Chuck Mangione. It doesn't work that way. You have to be able to reliably practice it. It's a skill. So find a application that you can reliably use. For me, I prefer something on the phone, so that way if I can't get on a computer, I could just quickly still get my daily practice in with it. Once you do that, you need to sort of use a quorum that you would use with a regular person. Even though it's AI is looking for keywords and basically looking at how you're structuring sentences to give you a response. If you're being very rude and off-putting, you're not necessarily going to get a response you want. If you have test anxiety, that's not going to help your test anxiety at all. So you want to, it's also very good practice to be able to practice how you want to interact with other people. So for me, I try to be kind, I try to be polite, I try to be understanding. So I try to incorporate that in my typing behavior as well. It's also very good business etiquette to get yourself into that mindset. So you want to take all these different skills and incorporate it with your prompt setup. So the first thing I would do is I would say something along the lines of, hello, I am wanting to take the FTCE professional. I'm looking at taking it for this hypothetical, let's say September 1st, and I need help preparing. Could you help me? And then you usually get a prompt back saying, sure, I'll be more than glad to help. I see that it's this many weeks away. How many days can you dedicate or something like that? Like, well, I'm looking at studying maybe an hour a day. Could you generate these 80 questions, 10 questions, make a multiple choice, and cover all the subject areas? It will get a prompt along the lines of, all right, I'm updating my memory. I will do this. And then the next day when you come in like, hey, I'm ready for my study session. Can you go ahead and give me the questions? Boom, there it goes. You can now go ahead and answer them and you'll get immediate feedback. So in this case, it'll be like, hey, good job. You got 7 out of 10 today. Would you like to review the 3 out of 10 that you missed? You can say, yes, I want to go ahead and review it. And then you can see why. It will even give you explanations, such as, you technically got this one wrong, but it was a gotcha question. So remember, out of the 4 questions they give you, 2 of them are technically right, but 1 is worded in the way that the test wants you to answer it, to where the other, even though it's right, is not the correct wording. So for example, little Jimmy, please sit down. Little Jimmy, put your butt in a chair now. One's the correct way of asking it, the other, not the correct way of answering it. So they'll give you those type of questions to where you have to decide what is the professional answer, what is the ethical answer, and which one is not. They're both technically correct. We want Jimmy to sit down, but one is more professional than the other.
This is a wonderful example, uh, which and I have actually learned that one because I told the students, I was like, oh, please have a seat. And they had students sit in chairs, on desks, on the floor, yeah, on each other, and I was like, okay, tomorrow we're going to use explicit instruction, and we're going to be like, while you're entering the classroom, please find your name at your desk and sit in the chair at your desk with your name. And so these things are really funny, and there's a reason why they're on the test in a professional manner. So I'd like you talk about working with your prompt?
What I would do is I would tell it, I am looking at taking the FTCE professional test or whatever test it may be. I'm looking at taking it on this date, and I'm looking at studying this many days a week. So that way it can determine what it needs to break it down to.
I'm going to just read this part out loud. It says, let's start with language arts and reading. Would you like practice questions with explanations, a study guide of what to know for the subtest, or a review of specific concept you're worried about? Let me know where you'd like to begin. I would like to begin. I would like to. No, I would like to begin with practice questions, please. Let's say please. It's much like being a teacher in the classroom where you're going to uh, ask and prompt and build and direct and use explicit instruction for what you're looking for. Add to that.
Yeah, so basically, what I like to look at it as is it's like a painting. You're starting with a blank canvas, and you need to start adding layers to get the picture that you want. So starting with our prompt, we put in basically the sky box of the painting, the background of it. Now when you start working to get the foreground, the props, and everything else of that painting set up. So now that we've asked it what we want, and it's given us the information, asking us what we want in return, we now have to decide what our comfort level is and start pulling away at it. So if we're already comfortable in the test, say we already have a good background knowledge of the FTCE elementary, obviously the AI is not going to know that up front. So now we need to tell it, okay, we're not so much interested in a study guide, we just want the practice questions. So now we go ahead and respond along the lines of, I would like to be quizzed or test, and I would like whatever the format you want. If you're one of those person who wants a real one-for-one situation, you could go ahead and prompt it with, I would like a 80 question. I would like it to be in the format of the FTCE elementary with a pass margin score of 200. Can you please wait to give me the answers until I submit all 80? And then at which point I'll go ahead and be like, all right, give me a moment, updating memory. Here's your 80 questions. I'll let you know if you pass or failed at the end. And then at the end, I'll simply say pass or fail. And you could even ask, okay, which questions did I get wrong? It will go back and reevaluate, tell you these are the ones you got wrong. And you could even go even further. Okay, these are the ones I got wrong. Is there a pattern? It could look back and go like, okay, I noticed you're getting, say, the mathematics section wrong the most. Your reading section is strong, your science section or whatever else. These are all great, but you're showing a massive weakness in science. Would you like a study guide on this? Or would you like more questions on the science focus? You can then choose and start really pulling the AI session in a direction that you want. So with the professional one, the one that was actually bugging me the most was simply getting the lesson structures correct. And it wasn't so much, can I write a lesson plan? It's more or less on the lines of getting the names of the different lessons correct, the Danielson model and all that stuff, getting all those correct. So that was what was tripping me up. I was getting everything else correct, but that was my one section that was the weakest. So I was able to ask it to, hey, let's do a study guide on this. Let me see what I'm getting wrong and read off that. And as stuff pops up, I would get myself confused because I was thinking, oh, maybe the AI is wrong. So I would ask it a question along the lines of, hey, are you sure it's Danielson? Because I thought it was, I don't know, Webster. And it would pop up like, no, I could see where you got the confusion on that on. It's a very popular kind of thing. Would you like to see the resources or sources on why it's actually the Danielson model? And I'd be like, sure. You'll pull up a list. You're like, all right, this is from Purdue University. This is from the University of Georgia, whatever else. And it'll let me look at those sources. And if there's a source that I'm confused about, I could ask, is this a reputable source? It could then pull back and say that this was written by Dr. So-and-so, and this is used by whatever. So then I could go back to like, okay, now I understand where my confusion is on that. Can I please have 5 more questions in that subject area? It will then spitfire me 5 more questions. And if I get it correct, it'll be like, all right, you now have a full understanding of this. Where do you want to continue from here? And then it'll branch off and give you the choices again.
This is phenomenal because this incorporates so much. This is a self-assessment, and then you're using the tool to help you self-assess. And let's say that there is like a learning theory question, and it had a Pavlov and Vygotsky, which are two that can be confused on the test. And then, and you're right, you would see your pattern, or it could help you see your pattern. Here's what's I want the listeners to understand: to ask follow-up questions. What is the difference between Pavlov and Vygotsky? Tell me more about Vygotsky. What is the zone of proximal development? Please explain. Thank you. Generate 5 questions on the zone of proximal development. And so, how you actually narrow down, and this is exactly what you're going to do in the classroom. You're going to have a student, they're struggling in one particular area. You're going to assess and refine, and then supplement the learning, and then reinforce. Uh, this is very well done. And the other thing that I think we're doing here today is a think aloud. So, as another classroom strategy, instructional strategy, is that we get to hear how you're processing the use of this new tool. And then we learn, from you, Tommy, how to process like this. Because for me, I was able to read your manuscript, and I thought, oh, this is amazing. This is how you build. So, what have you learned from using AI, and what challenges do you see other students facing as they prepare for these exams?
So, what I've learned with AI is that you need to really lead it on what you want. A lot of people are under the impression that you could ask a question and it will just spit you out an answer. The problem with that is that so many of these questions overlap with each other. So, for example, if I were to ask it a question, in my mind, I know it's going to be for exceptional students. The AI is not going to know that. So I may ask it, what is the best classroom procedure for this student who's misbehaving? And I just put that in as a question. It's going to treat it as a general student. It's going to go through and it's going to give me behavior practices that are probably not appropriate for a exceptional needs student. So you need to be able to set up filters and be as transparent as possible when you're writing these prompts to get the best results. So for me, I would put in what would be the best behavior practice for this exceptional needs student who is demonstrating this, or has this, so I could get the information I need. Because if not, I'm going to get something that's going to be very inappropriate for that student, and that's not going to be healthy or helpful whatsoever. So just like with these tests, if I'm asking a question for the FTCE Pro, I need to make sure it's tailored to the FTCE Pro and not a question that's going to be aimed for, say, high school education, to where there might be some overlap, but generally speaking, you're not going to handle a situation that you would with a elementary middle school student like you would a high school student. So there is something that you have to work with your prompts and wording to be a little bit more precise. And I think that is an issue that some students are going to have, is that they're so used to using a text language, or they're so used to be using shorthand language and whatever, that they're going to start generating these prompts and they're not putting in the thought that the AI doesn't know what they're thinking. They're not putting thought to paper, in this case, thought to keyboard. And you have to be able to do that. If you're not able to translate your thoughts to the keyboard, there's going to be a disconnect. You're going to get frustrated and you're going to think that we're just blowing smoke because it didn't work for you. So you have to be able to take the thoughts in your head and accurately relay it to your keyboard.
This is wise. This is very wise advice, Tommy. Uh, this is where the rubber hits the road, right? So, this is the closing of the gap between the textbook theory that you learn and the actual practice in the classroom. When you're prompting for AI, you're using explicit instruction. You are framing the direction. You're so correct. Here's what I saw you do in your prompt writing. You use the word simulate. And when I changed out generate for simulate, I got a live session. Let's say, and you narrowed it down. Let's say I'm only having trouble with competency 4, and let's say that was math. Then I will get a practice test simulation on competency 4 of that specific test for that area, and I can actually cut and paste in what those very specific competencies are and sub competencies from the FTCE FELE main website. So you, as you were stating, the listeners who are preparing for the test and are using AI high impact tutoring need to frame out what you're looking for explicitly. Or you're not going to get, if you're not getting what you're looking for, you're not asking the right questions. And this goes into being able to ask higher order questions, which is another wonderful instructional strategy in the classroom. So this all connects this way. I see it all connect. So before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to share some final words of wisdom. What's one piece of advice that you would give our listeners, especially those who are feeling the pressure of upcoming exams?
What I would give as advice is that you have to remember AI is like a tool. It's no different than a hammer. It's no different than a stapler. It could help you do what you need to do, but if you're using it incorrectly, you're not going to get the results you need. Just like with a hammer. It could help me hammer in that nail. Great. Can it help me as a cooking tool? Probably, but probably not going to do as good job as a spatula or anything else. So with that AI tool, you need to be able to use it correctly. You need to be able to spend time getting it set up. After you get it set up, the investment that you're putting into it is what you're willing to put into it. So if you want to spend an hour studying, you can spend the hour studying. But to get the setup, you may be spending that 2 hours or so to get the proper framework you need, so you can only spend an hour on your phone, on your tablet, or whatever else to put in the results. With regards to anything else off that, you can ask it other questions to help you out. For me, test anxiety is my big thing because I start to double question and double think things. So you could even put in there as a prompt, hey, I'm starting to get a lot of test anxiety. What would you recommend? It'll pop up and be like, okay, I see that you're having some issues with test anxiety and you're double guessing a lot. I could see this as to why you're getting a lot of questions wrong, because you're getting these 50-50s wrong. So it's not so much that you just don't get it, it's just test anxiety is kicking in. And instead of hitting A, you're hitting B, and then you're going back and hitting A, and because anxiety got it wrong. So try these breathing techniques, try these thinking techniques, try using this logic, try all these different things. One of the prompts, or one of the things it gave me was, remember, you have 4 answers it's giving you. One is going to be straight up wrong. So now you went from 100% trying to get it wrong to only being 75% wrong. 2 of them are going to be similar. Take the one that's not similar, get rid of it. Now you're down to a 50-50. That's a coin toss. And now that you're down to a coin toss, which one sounds the most professional? Which one sounds most ethical? Which one sounds like something a teacher would say or do, or a principal would say and do? Which one has that most weight? Now that you have that there, you've pretty much got a heavy-sided coin to play with. So you could start taking some of your own personal weaknesses. And obviously part of that is that you have to admit that you have that weakness. If you believe that you're Superman and you're just going to want to take the test, well, that weakness is going to show eventually. So you might as well just own up to it and help further strengthen that weakness. So when you go to take that test, you're able to do what you need to do. And then the other things you have to remember, with these tests, it is a high percentage in order to pass it. When you break that down, you're basically needing roughly a B plus to pass that test. So just because you get a B, you may miss by 1 or 2 questions. It's not the end of the world. You could take that data and take it into the AI. Hey, I did not pass the first time. I got a score of, say, 180 out of 200. You could be like, all right, you got real close. 180 is actually very close to passing. It'll say, what did you feel you did wrong? Well, I started double guessing a lot again, or it asked all these kind of questions that I got wrong. So you can sit there and be like, all right, these questions, for whatever reason it was asking me these type of questions. You could put in those type of questions, and then it will look at it and be like, okay, this sort of matches this competency. This sort of matches this division. About, for whatever time period you have left, say you're taking it in 31 days, which I think it is, right? 31 days? Let's focus on this section. And then a week before, let's do another 80 question test and see how you're doing. So take all these things and really start making a bridge out of it. So that way you could really start to succeed with it.
I want to point out that admitting your weaknesses to be able to be able to admit that in yourself as a test taker is, and I tell this to the students that I work with, I, you will meet yourself in the classroom. And when you know yourself, then you're able to be a better teacher for the student because you're like, oh, kiddo, you're totally having test anxiety. And then you're like, I do too. I think it's great that you wove in uh, a prompt into your study plan and guide and practice because what I played with was motivational strategies. And so when I asked AI to build out a practice test, an 80 question practice test in a multiple choice format where I can answer the question and then it can hold the explanation and answer till the end. But with each question, this came with that thing with building and feeding and building and reprompting and revisiting. I asked for motivational strategies. So every time I got an answer wrong, it was like, listen, it literally was like, listen, you're doing great. Don't give up. You're almost there. I see what you did, but you're very close. You may have been confused by this, and it was excellent. So that's something that for me that I need is motivational strategies. And I encourage listeners to build in for test anxiety, build in for motivation strategies, build in for study plans over time or Pomodoro techniques. Know yourself and build your AI high impact prompt tutor and then watch your own outcomes grow. That's a great note to end on. The message is clear. AI isn't just a fun tool. It's a powerful part of how you can learn today and prepare to pass these tests. So what do you think about using AI for exam prep? Let us know in the comments. Before you go, I want to leave you with this. Don't ever stop asking those big questions. In fact, ask them to AI. And this is where the real learning happens, is when you learn to ask higher order thinking questions and you frame this stuff out. So get out there, study smart, keep pushing forward. You got this. I'm your host, Mercedes Musto. Thank you, Tommy Seeker, for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
And join us again next time on FTCE Seminar, the podcast that helps you pass your teacher's certification exams.